Welcome to the Brain Alpha. So, if you've spent literally any time online lately, you've probably seen this massive trend. Productivity influencers and self help gurus are just pushing journaling so incredibly hard right now. I mean, you've definitely seen the titles, right? I journaled for 1,000 days and it completely changed my life. Or, how my notebook helped me ace the CPA exam and get a massive promotion. It's everywhere. Now, look, I'm not here to bash journaling at all. Actually, I'm a huge advocate for it, and it absolutely is an effective habit. But, well, there's a glaring issue with how it's being presented to us. These posts make it seem like some sort of magic spell. They kind of make it sound like just the sheer physical act of buying a fancy notebook and scribbling in it is going to automatically guarantee success. And if you buy into that without actually understanding the mechanics behind it, man, you are in for a really frustrating awakening. So, let me ask you a question. Why hasn't journaling changed your life yet? If you're one of the millions of people who went out, bought a nice, expensive leather-bound journal, sat down, and started logging your days, you might be looking around right now wondering, okay, where's the magic? Why are you still stuck in the exact same spot? Why hasn't your productivity skyrocketed overnight? You're doing the daily logging, you're checking the box every morning, but those life-changing results the influencers promised? Yeah, they are nowhere to be found. It can be incredibly agitating, right? You feel like you're missing out on the big secret. Well, you are missing the secret, but it's really not what you think. Okay, let's dive into this. We need to immediately debunk this whole magic pill expectation. Because the reality for most people is that they aren't actually journaling at all. They're really just keeping a diary. Think about it for a second. If you sit down and write, today I talked to my coworker about the new project, it was nice, or I had a really good lunch today, do you honestly think that is going to alter your destiny? No way. Information storage, just blindly recording the basic facts of your day, is not going to elevate your productivity or magically make your dreams come true. Now, if you're just doing it as a fun hobby to look back on years later, hey, that's fantastic, keep at it. But if you're looking for actual, tangible personal growth, you have to realize that merely writing down daily facts is a massive waste of this tool's potential. To actually get those life-changing results, you've got to understand the first true purpose of journaling. And here it is. It's not about saving information. It's about forcing your brain to find the absolute root cause of a problem. Real journaling is an active, and honestly, sometimes a really uncomfortable, aggressive mental excavation. You aren't just logging what happened. You're actively questioning why it happened, and more importantly, why you reacted the way you did. It's all about taking a raw, surface-level emotion or event and just digging and digging until you hit the absolute bedrock of the issue. Let's look at exactly how this works with a super relatable workplace example. Step 1, the fact. Your boss yelled at you for how you handled a task. Okay. Step 2, the emotion. You're angry. Now, most people stop right here. They write, my boss yelled at me today, I'm so mad, and they just close the book. Guys, that's a diary. To turn this into a journal, you apply the 5 whys technique. Why are you mad? Well, you're mad because you put a lot of your own creative spin on the project and it was completely rejected. Why does that hurt so much? Because you realize you deeply, truly value having creative control over your work. That's step 3, the core why. And boom, we arrive at step 4, the action. You need to actively seek out or create environments in your life where you actually have autonomy and control, because that is tied directly to your baseline happiness. See what happened? You just turned a random bad day at work into a really profound realization about your core values. This exact process is actually a formalized framework often used by prominent business leaders, and we can call it abstract and apply. Here's how it works. You take a highly specific, highly emotional phenomenon that happens right in front of you, like, say, getting chewed at the office. You strip away all the specific details to find the abstract truth underneath, and then you take that truth and apply it to the rest of your life. So in our example, the abstract truth is that humans, and specifically you, require a controllable environment to feel completely fulfilled. Now you can apply that literally everywhere. You can apply it to how you manage your own teams, how you set up your personal hobbies, or even just how you structure your daily schedule. And this brilliantly illustrates the compounding power of time. When you start abstracting and applying these lessons, they build on each other, and they build fast. It's actually very similar to why we love classic American sports movies like Rocky or those massive long-running comic franchises from Marvel or DC. Think about it. If you just watch one random isolated scene from one movie, it might not really seem like a big deal. But because these stories develop over a massive timeline, the character growth compounds, making the ultimate payoff incredibly powerful. Well, your journal works the exact same way. The real magic happens when you maintain this long-term perspective. Short-term venting? It does practically nothing. But long-term abstraction and pattern recognition, that builds an absolutely unstoppable foundation. So this brings us to the second major pillar, true purpose number 2, the rapid writing habit. For this, I need you to completely reframe how you view this entire process. The ultimate goal here is actually not the physical journal itself. The notebook? It's just a tool. The real goal is developing the physical, instinctual reflex of capturing ideas the exact second they enter your brain. The habit of externalizing your thoughts instantly, that is the real superpower here, not the fancy paper you write it on.
We really have to contrast this with what is normally preached online. Consider the classic, rigid 30-minute morning routine. You know, the one sitting at a desk, staring at a blank page, trying to force profound thoughts out of your head just because your timer says you have to. Honestly, most of the time, forced journaling just produces forced garbage. Contrast that with instant capture throughout the day. The most life-changing, brilliant ideas do not care about your perfectly curated morning routine. They're going to hit you while you're folding the laundry, while you're out walking the dog, or right in the middle of a deep focus work session. The habit is simply being ready to catch that lightning in a bottle the very moment it strikes.
Let's move to and see how this builds into 3 incredibly powerful, hidden daily benefits that only emerge once you actually master this rapid writing habit. When you're constantly capturing your thoughts and reflecting on them correctly, your brain actually starts to rewire itself in the background. It's wild. We're going to look at the gap between your ideals and reality, how you handle stress, and how you shift your baseline focus. All right, benefit number 1 is spotting the ideal versus reality gap. Let's say your ideal goal is to start a side hustle, right? Make an extra few $100 a month. But because you're actively logging your days, you look back at your notes and realize, wow, I spent 2 hours mindlessly scrolling on my phone and playing video games. Seeing that written down in your own handwriting, it creates this severe cognitive dissonance. It feels incredibly uncomfortable to see the glaring gap between what you say you want and what you actually do. And you know what? That is a really good thing. Your brain absolutely hates that uncomfortable feeling, and it's going to subconsciously push you to fix the discrepancy and align your actions with your goals, just to make that awkward feeling go away.
Moving on to benefit number 2, pattern recognition for stress. Look, life is just full of frustrating problems. But if you just get furious every single time something goes wrong, you're burning up massive amounts of mental bandwidth and completely destroying your productivity. But when you write down your daily frustrations, you literally start to see the matrix. You look back and realize, wait a minute, this exact same type of miscommunication happened last month. Suddenly, an overwhelming, chaotic stress trigger turns into a predictable, totally manageable pattern. Instead of a full-blown meltdown, your reaction just becomes, okay, this pattern again. I already know how to solve this. And that saves you immense amounts of energy.
And benefit number 3 is the gratitude shift. Now, I know this sounds a little bit cliche, but I promise the mechanics behind it are pure neuroscience. Your brain naturally has a baseline focus. If you constantly dwell on what annoys you, your brain gets really, really good at finding things to be annoyed about. But by deliberately taking a moment to write down a couple of things you're actually thankful for, you physically steer that baseline focus. You're basically training your brain's radar to scan for positive opportunities and supportive people rather than just constantly looking for threats and irritations. It genuinely shifts your baseline away from anxiety and straight toward happiness.
So knowing all of this, it brings up the ultimate productivity debate, the one that causes endless, massive arguments online. Paper or digital? Which one is actually better for this rapid capture and deep abstraction? I mean, we live in a totally modern world, and almost all of us rely heavily on our phones, our tablets, and our laptops to track pretty much every other metric of our lives. So shouldn't we just use a note-taking app on our phone and call it a day?
Well, the answer is unequivocally pen and paper, and it comes down purely to speed and the way our brains interact with technology. You see, digital devices trigger this subconscious editing reflex. The second you open a digital document, your brain immediately wants to fix typos, format the text, and make everything look super clean. That extra step of editing, it completely eats up your working memory. Pen and paper, however, offers instant, raw speed. You can scribble, you can draw terrible diagrams, cross things out, and just get the core concept out of your head without any friction whatsoever. And this matters because the golden rule of journaling is this: you must capture the fleeting thought before it vanishes. We have absolutely all experienced this incredibly painful scenario. You're working, or maybe you're reading, and suddenly, boom! A brilliant $1,000,000 idea pops into your head. It's the absolute perfect solution to a problem you've been having. But your notebook is all the way across the room. So you tell yourself, I'll just finish writing this one email and then I'll write it down. 60 seconds pass, you finish the email, you go to write down the idea, and it's gone. completely evaporated. It is such a devastating feeling. If you don't have the rapid writing habit, and if you aren't using the fastest tool available, you're going to lose your best thoughts.
So, the absolutely crucial point we need to leave you with is this. How are you going to capture your next life-changing idea? Are you going to let it slip away just because you weren't ready? Or will you have the habit and the tools perfectly in place to catch it, abstract it, and apply it to actually change your life? The choice is entirely up to you. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to the channel, give us a thumbs up, and help us build a hype. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.